Chapter 4, Communicating Across Cultures. In this chapter, we'll describe the characteristics of cultural intelligence, its importance for global business leaders, and approaches to developing it. Explain the major cultural dimensions and related communication practices. Name and describe key categories of business etiquette in the intercultural communication process, and identify how generational, gender, and other group differences affect workplace communications. So, this chapter covers characteristics of cultural intelligence, major cultural dimensions, such as individualism, collectivism, collectivism, egalitarianism, and hierarchy, assertiveness, performance orientation, future orientation, humane orientation, uncertain avoidance, and gender egalitarianism. Key categories of business etiquette, including appropriate topics of conversation, private or taboo topics, punctuality in meetings, dining, touching, and proximity, and how group differences affect workplace communications. In Chapter 2, you read about emotional intelligence, your ability to manage emotions in interpersonal situations. Similarly, cultural intelligence is a measure of your ability to work with and adapt to members of other cultures. Like EQ, but unlike IQ, CQ can be developed and improved over time with training, experience, and conscious effort. Business professionals with high CQ understand differences and similarities between cultures. Culture includes the shared values, norms, rules, and behaviors of an identifiable group of people who share a common history and communication system. There are many types of culture, such as national, organizational, and team. We discuss principles of intercultural communication in this chapter in the context of national cultures, which tend to be more permanent and enduring than other types of culture. The norms and values of national cultures are established through a shared language, shared history and traditions, school systems, and political and economic systems. When people with high CQ encounter unfamiliar situations, they can apply a variety of the skills displayed in Table 4.2 and discussed throughout the chapter. So take a minute and read through those. Culture intelligence is built on attitudes of respect and recognition of other cultures. This means that you view other cultures as holding legitimate and valid views of and approaches to managing business and workplace relationships. In recent years, many public and educational campaigns have focused on embracing diversity. In this book, we refer to diversity as the presence of many cultural groups in the workplace. Business professionals with high cultural intelligence embrace diversity as a moral imperative and as a means to achieve higher performance. Studies have shown that a mix of cultural groups in terms of national culture, ethnicity, age, and gender leads to better decision making. As a college student, you are in the stage of life that gives you unique opportunities to acquire cross cultural experiences. Considering the following options: studying abroad, learning a language, developing friendships with international students, and taking an interest in learning about a particular culture. Following are some ways to learn about a specific culture. Watch films, television, documentary, news, and other video of the culture. It's increasingly easy to access video of other cultures. This allows you to observe many aspects of the culture in context with visual and auditory cues. Follow the business culture of a country. Many websites contain global business news sections with both text and videos. For example, consider the following: not Bloomberg Business Week, CNBC, Time, Foreign Exchange, and Cyberweb. Take courses and attend events related to particular cultures. Your your university offers numerous opportunities, including taking courses about international and intercultural topics and attending symposia that feature international speakers. Make friends with people who live in other cultures and communicate online. You might try to make friends abroad and communicate frequently via email, chat, and online calls. Stereotyping about cultures can be dysfunctional, counterproductive, and even hurtful. People tend to form two types of stereotypes when interacting with members of other cultures: projected cognitive similarity and outgroup homogeny effect. Projected cognitive similarity is a tendency to assume that others have the same norms and values as your own cultural group. Outgroup homogeny effects is the tendency to think members of other groups are all the same. Psychologically, this approach minimizes the mental effort needed to get to know people of other groups. Practically speaking, it is counterproductive to developing effective working relationships with members of other cultures. The reality is that all cultures contain a lot of diversity. Members of other cultures often form stereotypes of Americans based on news stories, surprise, surprise, as well as popular culture such as films, television shows, and music. Typically, people high in CQ show patience. They understand that most tasks take longer when working across cultures because more time is needed to understand one another and cooperate effectively. Furthermore, many cross cultural work projects are conducted across great distances. Naturally, this requires additional time due to the communication tools and organizational decision making processes. As you conduct business across cultures with those who have limited English ability, consider the following advice. Avoid quickly judging that others have limited communication proficiency. Many non native English speakers take time to warm up. The first moments, or in some cases days or weeks, of your interaction with them are not representative of their real language abilities. Articulate clearly and slow down. Many Americans inadvertently run their words together, as you've noticed. Make sure you pronounce each word distinctly and slow your pace slightly. Avoid slang and jargon. Slang and jargon can be particularly confusing to members of other cultures. Give others time to express themselves. Allow those with limited English ability enough time to process their thoughts into English, and use interpreters as necessary. In some situations, you rely on interpreters. Spend some time in advance getting to know the interpreter's abilities and preferences for facilitating an exchange. Recent research on cultural norms and values among business people throughout the world, conducted by the GLOBE group, found that cultures can be grouped into 8 dimensions. Cultural dimensions are fairly permanent and enduring sets of related norms and values. The 8 cultural dimensions identified by the Globe Group are classified as individualism and collectivism, egalitarianism and hierarchy, performance orientation, future orientation, assertiveness, humane orientation, uncertainty avoidance, and gender egalitarianism. By understanding these 8 dimensions, you can get a good sense of the underlying motivations and goals that impact acceptable behaviors within a culture. Individualism refers to a mindset that prioritizes independence more highly than interdependence, emphasizing individual goals over group goals and valuing choice more than obligation. Figure 4.2 displays country rankings for individualism and collectivism in society. Of the countries considered here, China has the highest ranking of collectivism and Netherlands has the lowest. Collectivism. It refers to a mindset that prioritizes interdependence more highly than independence, emphasizing group goals over individual goals, and valuing obligation more than choice. Figure 4.3 displays country rankings for individualism and collectivism within companies. In many cases, these rankings differ from norms and values in society at large. Interesting. Table 4.4. All cultures develop norms for how power is distributed. In egalitarian culture, people tend to distribute and share power evenly, minimize status differences, and minimize special privileges and opportunities for people just because they have higher authority. In hierarchical cultures, people accept power differences, follow leaders without questioning them, and feel comfortable with the leaders receiving special privileges and opportunities. Power tends to be concentrated at the top. Figure 4.5 displays country ranking for hierarchy and egalitarianism. In egalitarian organizations, people of all ranks are encouraged to voice their opinions. By contrast, in hierarchical organizations, employees are discouraged from openly challenging leaders. Table 4.5 presents communication practices normally associated with hierarchy and egalitarianism. Take a moment, read through some of those. Performance obligation is the extent to which a community encourages and rewards innovation, high standards, and performance improvement. Of all cultural dimensions, societies cherish this one the most, especially in business. Yet many cultures are still developing a performance orientation. Figure 4.6 displays country rankings for performance orientation. Table 4.6 presents communication practices normally associated with high and low performance obligations. Take a moment, read through them. Future orientation, FO, involves the degree to which cultures are willing to sacrifice current wants to achieve future needs. Cultures with low FO, or present orientated cultures, tend to enjoy being in the moment and spontaneity. They are less anxious about the future and often avoid the planning and sacrifices necessary to reach future goals. By contrast, cultures with high FO are imaginative about the future and have the discipline to carefully plan for and sacrifice current needs and wants to reach future goals. Figure 4.7 displays country rankings for future orientation. Table 4.7 presents communication practices normally associated with high and low future orientation. Once again, take a moment and read through those. The level of directness in speech varies greatly across cultures, and this can lead to miscommunication, misinterpretation of motivations, and hard feelings. The cultural dimension of assertiveness deals with the level of confrontation and directness that is considered appropriate and productive. Typically, North Americans and Western Europeans are the most assertive in business situations, whereas Asians tend to be less assertive. Figure 4.8 displays country rankings for assertiveness. Members of highly assertive cultures often view members of less assertive cultures as timid, unenthusiastic, uncommitted, and even dishonest. since they withhold or temper their comments. On the other hand, members of less assertive cultures often view members of highly assertive cultures as rude, tactless, inconsiderate, and even uncivilized. In particular, business people notice differences in levels of assertiveness when a yes or no answer is expected. Table 4.8 presents communication practices normally associated with high and low assertiveness. Take a look. Humane orientation is the degree to which an organization or society encourages and rewards individuals for being fair, altruistic, friendly, generous, caring, and kind. In high HO cultures, people demonstrate that others belong and are welcome. Concern extends to all people, friends, and strangers, and to nature. In low HO cultures, the values of pleasure, comfort, and self enjoyment take precedence over displays of generosity and kindness. People extend material, financial, and social support to a close circle of friends and family. Society members are expected to solve personal problems on their own. Figure 4.9 displays country rankings for humane orientation. Table 4.9 presents communication practices normally associated with high and low humane orientation. Uncertainty avoidance refers to how cultures socialize members to feel in uncertain, novel, surprising, or extraordinary situations. In high UA cultures, people feel uncomfortable with uncertainty and seek orderliness, consistency, structure, and formalized procedures. In low UA cultures, people feel comfortable with uncertainty. In fact, they may even thrive. Figure 4.1 displays country rankings for uncertainty avoidance. Table 4.1 presents communication practices normally associated with high and low uncertainty avoidance. Take a moment, read through. Gender egalitarianism deals with the division of roles between men and women in society. In high gender egalitarianism cultures, men and women are encouraged to occupy the same professional roles in leadership positions. Women are included equally in decision making. In low gender egalitarianism cultures, men and women are expected to occupy different roles in society. Typically, women have less influence in professional decision making. However, in societies where gender roles are highly distinct, women often have powerful roles in family decision making. Gender egalitarianism relates not only to professional opportunity for men and women, but also to expectations and customs about how men and women should communicate. In Table 4.11, you will find communication practices normally associated with high and low gender egalitarianism cultures. The process of building relationships and co creating success with members of other cultures may involve communicating and working in entirely new ways for people in those of other cultures. To aid this process, it is important to do the following: establish trust and show empathy, adopt a learner mindset, and build a co culture of cooperation and innovation. Business managers often start relationships from a position of needing to earn the trust of others. This process may be more challenging when working with a culture in which the beliefs that most people are fair or most people can be trusted may be less prominent than in North America. See Figure 4.11 there. China, Canada, the Netherlands, Japan, Canada, and the United States are considered to be high trust cultures, meaning that their citizens are more conditioned to trust. Mexico, Brazil, and France are considered to be low trust cultures. Expectations of fair play vary widely across cultures. Figure 4.12 indicates the percentage of adults who agree that most people are fair is highest in Japan, China, the United States, the Netherlands, and Mexico. Developing strong cross cultural relationships requires a learner mindset. With the learner mindset, you expect that members of other cultures possess unique types of knowledge and unique approaches to problem solving that will be helpful for shared business interests. The opposite of the learner mindset when working with other cultures is the judger mindset. In cross cultural working relationship, the judger mindset is often referred to ethnocentrism. It is a belief that your own culture is superior, that it provides better approaches for solving work problems or dealing with work relationships, and contains a better knowledge base to conceptualize work. Following the rules of etiquette in other cultures is one way of gaining favorable first impressions and showing respect. This is especially the case as you get to know potential partners or clients. You have many sources for learning about the appropriate customs and etiquette of other cultures. Table 4.13, you will find examples from Brazil, one of the so-called BRIC countries, because of their expected strategic importance for business during the 21st century. This table includes the types of customs and etiquettes you should become aware of before traveling to Brazil. For business, including appropriate versus taboo topics of conversation, punctuality in meetings, dining, touching, and proximity, business dress, and gift giving. Take a moment. In Table 4.13, you will find examples of etiquette and customs in Russia. Here's one from India. China. Like cultures on a global level, generational groups, gender, and other group identities can impact workplace communication. Often members of these groups have been socialized in certain ways. They grew up with similar societal expectations and interacted with others as children and adults in ways that shaped what they came to view as acceptable and appropriate. Currently, up to five generations work together in the workplace. Traditionalists who were born between 1925 and 45, boomers who were born between 46 and 64, Gen X, which were born between 65 and 81. That's what I am. Gen Yers who were born between 81 and 99, and the Gen Zers who were born in 2000 or after. Table 4.13 shows the number of workers from each of these five generationals that currently comprise the American workforce. Take note, Gen X and Gen Yers are the most um, people in the workforce right now. As you work with colleagues, clients, and customers of all ages, consider the following tips. Focus on individuals and their professional goals. Recognize the similarities across generations. Pay attention to preferred approaches to communicating and observe appropriate formality and attire. In Table 4.14, you'll notice common perceptions that professionals of various generations hold about millennials. These perceptions are common over time. Every generation entering the workforce faces stereotypes. In Table 4.14, you'll notice common perceptions that professionals of various generations hold about millennials. These perceptions are common over time. And as I said before, every generation entering the workplace faces stereotypes. So here's some more. This is the numbers refer to percentage of respondents who agreed that professionals of each generation exhibited these traits. While some communication patterns of men and women in the workplace have converged over the past decade, differences still exist. Overall, women tend to be more relationship oriented, collaborative, and interconnected in thinking, whereas men tend to be more independent, competitive, and linear in thinking. Not all. In figure 4.14, then on the women's side, you'll notice several differences about the relationship between gender and collectivism that hold in nearly all societies. First, differences in national cultures are typically far greater than those of gender within societies. Second, women tend to be more relationship oriented in individualistic and collectivist societies. That's true. Third, there is significant overlap between men and women within societies. This suggests women and men may have general tendencies, but you can easily find many exceptions on an individual level. That's very true. Speech patterns more common among women than men include the following: asking questions, apologizing, sharing credit, giving feedback, avoiding verbal opposition, being indirect to subordinates, and complimenting. As you work with others, you'll often notice people use various speech patterns in different ways. Consider the following tips. Notice when professionals use these speech patterns for task-based versus relationship-based reasons. Purposefully and consciously adopt your own style and do your part to overcome biases. Professionals hold identities in many groups and generally adopt some of the shared values and norms of these groups. Regional differences may impact communication. Similarly, professionals who grew up in rural, suburban, and urban areas often gain lifelong attitudes and behaviors. Ethnicity likewise affects many professional values, attitudes, and identities in the workplace. Occupational groups often hold distinct ways of approaching work. Even companies have distinct cultures. After studying this chapter, you should understand the following: characteristics of cultural intelligence, major cultural dimensions, key categories of business etiquette, and how group differences affect workplace communication.